Hey, welcome back to the Build It Basement. Today we're going to clean up our wiring on our LDO Voron 0.1 kit. Possibly get the skirts on here. Pretty quick video. So let's jump right into it. So first things first, and I'm going to reference this in a second. I'm going to show you it, is the LDO manual that they've also produced for this. So alongside the Voron, which is the quintessential proper kit or proper manual to use for your build, LDO also has a electronic / wiring instruction manual that I'm going to show you in a moment. It's available online in their Git. Is it on the Git? It's actually docs.ldomotors.com. So we're on that in a second. So things I've done is I have rotated my Raspberry Pi. If you wind up in that same situation, twist it to get it off, restick it. The reason for that, gives you more room for hooking up your USB to your controller board while leaving your channel in the middle for our wire chase. I've gone ahead and I've crimped in a JST connector here from the hot end, basically to get rid of the connector that was on there that wasn't proper for this board. And let's jump into that manual. All right, so this is the manual. Again, it's at docs.ldomotors.com, and this is the LDO V0.1 kit wiring diagram, and basically it's a pictorial with some writing on some of the things that are also covered in the Voron manual, but with a little bit more information. They go over the switch here that we went over, about the power supplies, and then they got this diagram here, which I'm going to show you in a moment. You could do this if you want, but I don't think you need to. And that kind of right there is proof that you don't really need to, because pretty much going on there. So you got that, and so then we get here where they actually have the Raspberry Pi and the SKR board and the mounted cable run down here in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and kind of start cleaning up the way that they show it there, and then we'll go from there. So here we go. So first things first, the LDO kit does come with this channel. You do need to cut the sides. They give you enough to run both inside the back of the printer as well as on the bottom. As I said before, I don't think you need it on the bottom. I guess you could put it in there, but the wiring that is back there is relatively tight, and yeah, I don't know if you really need it. So let's go ahead and get this cut, and we're gonna glue this down with some VHB tape. So we're gonna try to slide these out of the ways and try to kind of figure out exactly. I could have put this in before, but I wanted to clean up the wiring in one go. So go like that, and then I basically cut it to that point right there. As it catches every single wire. Slide that aside. Just give that a nip. And another. There we go. Which one's which? Almost equal. And then we might as well cut this while we're at it. This is the cover. Goes on there. So this. Make this slightly longer. Put it up. Put it up. Just like that. Okay. Off. Heat. And if you want to, you could heat this up. Clean it up, heat it up, do what you want. This really weighs nothing, so I'm going to forego that step. And I'm going to struggle with this. Oh, there we go. Again. All right. Take this back into play. I'm going to hold this sideways so the tape's facing out in a direction so it's not catching on me, or catching on the printer. And I may cut it just a smidge too long. Why not? Just gonna cut it a little bit. Very little. Pull these wires up out of the way. And this is going to go pretty much dead center. Like so. Give it a good little push. All right. So now that's in, I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to flip it up. And let's keep, well, first things first, let's get this filament out of there. And let's pull our wires up and zip tie these so we can get them into that. Zip ties, need little ones. Big. That'll work. It does come with zip ties, but oh, there they are. I might as well use the kit zip ties. They give you a metric ton of them, so you shouldn't run out. So at this point, I'm just going to bring up this side, zip tie up and around through this way. That. Some people mention the wiring rubbing against the actual let's see here, the actual railing and everything, but nothing here is actually moving. It's all moving in conjunction with the head, so nothing here should really affect, as long as you're not on the actual linear rail rubbing against that, you should be all set. So that's that. Pull our thermistor and power over. Hot end. Do the same thing on this side. Put a little bit of a bend in that. And bring these guys up. So this printer uses or I guess what people call, what I guess I would agree with, an umbilical cord setup. Basically meaning that all the wiring is going to come into a single channel, but it isn't going to be riding in the rails, along the rails, like it does in a Voron 2 or some of the other Vorons. So up here we do have another tie off point, which is right there. So what we'll do is bring these wires up. And we're gonna put these down like that. I don't know what I'm gonna do with these connectors. I don't want to leave them too loose. But at the same time, I don't want them hitting my end stop switch over here. I do have an end stop switch, so I think I'm just going to bring them up. I think I'm just going to zip tie the whole lot together. and either using that zip tie or another section of this. I'm going to zip tie it to that connection, or that tie off point that they provide us with. Do that. And then I'm just going to pull these guys around. So there. All right. So go ahead and nip that and nip that. What's that leave us? Kind of short on the 5-volt wiring, the way that goes, but not sure if I should put some zip ties on this. What's the LDO, I mean the Voron manual say about this? Did they say anything about this? Let's see. No, I don't see anything about the umbilical cord here. We might have to skip ahead a little bit. We don't get dizzy here. Panels. Nope, that's it. So they don't really talk much about the actual umbilical cord. At least I can see. So let's go back to the LDO wiring guide. Did they say anything about the umbilical cord? No, they told us how to route our wires is about it. But you can see the umbilical cord at that point. So before that point, I ran the wires, then I do the umbilical cord. All right. Well, let's set that aside and see where that leads us. If we just put that on, does that hold enough, or do we need to actually put some zip ties on this before? Can we put zip ties on the outside of this? This is kind of a weird fabric loom. I'm not familiar with it. It's not quite split loom. It's not quite just like a fabric wrap, because it has like more structure to it. For some people have used this before, but this is a first for me. It is holding together pretty good. So continue to run that down through. And I don't know if it's going to stay or not, but let's go ahead and put a single zip tie on that, just to hold it for now. May very well wind up removing that, but too tight, just enough to hold it. And continue to run this down, laying the wire into the channel as we go. Again, not a ton of wiring on this little Voron. Pretty compact, pretty easy build. Definitely something somebody could build in a day if they so chose. And they had all the parts printed in advance. So let's put that back down. So that's looking pretty good. Switch over to this camera. Push this down here. I'm gonna max this out that way. And get a little bit further here. I'm gonna put a little bit more than I think we need in terms of length that we wire this up to. Only because I'm not 100% sure how our wiring is going to wind up. I kind of follow the instructions, but I think when you get to the wiring point, it's always a little bit different. They have extra wires. You know, I'm all for neatness and cutting wires to exact lengths. Sometimes there's something to be said to have a little bit of a, I want to call it a service loop, but I guess in a way a service loop so that you can kind of work on things if you need to. So, pull this back. Please. That like that. Set that aside. And there. All right. So I'm going to carry this wire. We need to carry it in, but go ahead and carry that in for a little ways. I don't want to come out, but let's try it anyways. There you go. All right. Perfect. All right. Okay. So basically they have their wiring done there, very similar to the way that I've done mine. Don't really see any reason to move much at all. I'm going to kind of resort a couple things here. Pull out our one of our AB steppers or stepper motors. I'm going to route that underneath this for now. Put that back in. And then that one's going to stay there. Really doesn't need to go through this, but let's go ahead and pull that one too. And run it through a couple slots and then put it back through. And I'm only really doing this to kind of use up some of the excess wire. Again, that's kind of what this allows you to do, is have a little bit of hidden wire. If you make everything way too tight, it's going to cause additional stresses on things. It's also going to make it so that if you do need to repair a wire for whatever reason, you may not have enough wire to work with. So there's that. And then our umbilical cord that comes down. Now there is I haven't seen it in the manual yet, but there is another piece that attaches right here to the center that we can tie to, which we will at some point when we get to that point. And then what's our best way to do this? Might have to unplug some of this, but we'll see in a second here. Pull this back. I try to get the wires from the umbilical cord all inserted first. So we've got this guy right here that's coming in from the front. That's our Z. And I'm going to unplug that. When you're working on wiring like this, if you don't have a manual and you're not fully familiar, do yourself a favor, try unplugging only one wire at a time. Makes it easier to know where it goes back. Otherwise, you might be hunting and kind of going through steps again. So let's now pull our wiring, primary wiring coming from the power supply, because that's going to go up this channel. Underneath everything. And I'm going to give it a quick loop back and forth. Again, that's kind of one of the benefits of having this channel. And if you plan really well, if you're really into maximizing neatness, one of the things you can do is line up your holes here so they actually line up with the portions of the component that you're connecting to. Sure. Really into that type of stuff. Can't say that I am, so let's see here. And then, just because I don't want to mess this up, does it show positive and negative? Let's see real quick here on the screen. Oh, whoa. So positive top, negative bottom. All right, good. Works for me. So positive is going to go back in here. At least it should. Go. Up. And negative. So nice and tight. And then let's see here. This is already down there. So I already mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again real quick, that hindsight being what it is, I would have rotated my Z-axis stepper so the wiring faced that way, but it's not a big deal that's facing where it is, really. So I'm going to pull this right here and I'm going to run that up. And it's going to be another wire that I'm going to wind up stringing back and forth a little bit. So basically pull all the slack out of it. There is plenty on this one. I'm just going back and forth inside the channel. There's a lot of room, so shouldn't have much issue doing that. But the only issue is getting snagged up on other wires, or the teeth on channel. Then I'm going to come out. Get all those wires tucked in. Yep. This one I'm going to come out basically across on the board where this is going to connect. Like so. Like that. And I'm going to hook up our Z. Stepper right there. A little bit of additional slack there. I can neaten that up some more, but I might leave it the way it is. Actually, I don't mind having a little bit there. Next up, we have our extruder. Which I'm going to pull out for now, and see who we are here. Plug that back in for a second. Like I said, I don't like to unplug more than one at a time. Plug one end and actually disconnect the bed here for a second. Completely different types of wires, completely different locations, so not a huge issue there. Then I'm going to run this down. While I'm doing that, I'm also going to grab other wire, redetach the extruder here again, plug it back in again. This can pretty much then come out. Plug in. There. This we can wrap back and forth. I'll say it again, if you are self-sourcing, or if you're really anal about your wiring, one thing you could do is trim these all up so that they are a little bit closer. You do see quite long on some of these. Not to a issue or anything, but they're just long. Some people are going to prefer to have longer wires, and once you have your wires, it's not real easy to extend them, but you can always cut them back. So it's probably the game plan going into this, was give people the option doing that. So we're just tucking in these final wires. That. Let's see here. That's our bed thermistor. That one I'm going to actually bring that way. You know what? I don't have enough to bring this around and over. I don't think. No, there's not enough there. So I am going to bring that straight up. I'll actually do this. I'm going to throw a couple zip ties on the bed and the thermistor to hold them together. The bed heater wires are very strong. The fiberglass silicone impregnated wire, while the thermistor wiring is a little bit more dainty. So give them a little bit of support. All right, and these are gonna come this way. But we can still go up the center here. At this point. And I'm gonna run these guys first, since they're smaller. I'm actually gonna run them underneath the USB cable here. And small loop on that. Tuck, tuck. Bring it back in. And almost there. Just gonna bring this one underneath the USB cable as well. I couldn't plug it, but what's the difference? These are gonna ride around top of everything. I don't think they made them different lengths. They should have made them slightly different lengths, but yeah, well. Then these are going to actually go underneath these 5-volt wires. Like so. And out. This port. Hopefully plugged in to the board here. There. Up there. That one wants to come out over here. That's where he's coming out. He's a big boy. He gets to choose. Number 2 goes back a little bit. And get that in there. Tight. Snap it in place. Go. All right. Connector open in case we ever want to put a screen on this thing, right? All right, so the ones that are really weird here, still the 5-volt wires. I don't know why they did it that way, but it's just kind of odd. So I'm gonna try to put this side in first because it's a little jacked up from all the wires coming out of it. Squeeze it. And there we go. Nice and neat. All right. So, neat wires are good wires, right? Well, I think left down here, and yeah, let's put this to good use. Yeah, it's like a glove for some reason. Are these wires down here, and I'm just going to loop that around. And in all honesty, I'm just going to use some slightly bigger zip ties to shore these up with each other so they're not flopping around. So that will hold our 24-volt wires to our larger wires, again for support. I'm just going to put this coil, put a zip tie on that. Zip ties are my best friend. All right, there we go. All right. I think what's left now is possibly throwing a zip tie where do I want this one? I want this one like this. And I'm keeping on purpose the heated bed thermistor out of this zip tie because I don't want to over pull it. Okay, so there's our top section, or back section actually. There's a bottom, and there is a small printer. All right. So it doesn't feel like you need much more on that. Looks freely. That moves freely. Yep. At some point we may have to adjust some of these end stops. I'm going to tighten this up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to cut this one off. The problem with thin zip ties is sometimes they can kind of bite their way through materials. So I'm going to throw this thicker zip tie on there, not because it needs to be there at more hold, but just because it will, there's a less probable chance of wearing through the material. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. All right, where does that put us? That puts us done with this, I believe. Yes, done with this. And back to the manual. And putting on some skirts. Okay. So, first skirts are going on the very bottom. So I'm going to get my handy dandy hat back out. It's probably the hardest thing I've actually ever printed. Just because of the shape of it, the size of it, and the surface area. I didn't want to print it with any skirt or anything, because I didn't want the extra plastic on it. So finally got it. Took about 3 tries. Maybe it's just tough for me, I don't know. All right, so M3x6s, button head screws, M3x6, 3x8s, M2s, 3x10s, M3x6s. We're going to need, looks like a bunch. We're gonna need 8 of them. 8 of them. And then we're going to need our skirts. And I'm going to put some tools aside here. So what could we do? We could do Sony with a screen. And that covers up our stuff. So what else we got here? We got screen with me. Not that you want to see me, but we'll do that. Gotta clean up my workspace just a little bit. Get rid of my zip tie cutoffs. Trash. And if you're still watching and you're enjoying this video, as I hope you are, go ahead and check out my Voron 2.4 build. It's as complete as this one, meaning that I do not fast forward. I do not skip any steps. It's pretty much a live build, but not live because it takes damn forever to do a live build with people talking to you while you're doing them. So let's see here. We are using, so use ball end driver because we gotta get around the edges. I get that. And then what pieces are we using? We're going on to the end side of the printer right here. And we're going to first get that going. We're gonna slide these around a little bit. Exactly where they're going to be, but I gotta guess. And basically these are going to go like so. So what I will do is I will take the furthest one to, it's going to the edge. I'm going to put it someplace where I can easily work on it. The only problem I have with these ball-ended hex tools is the fact that you can't really hold a screw with them. It wants to fall right out. So let me finagle my way around this way. So I'm doing this one first, way up this way, and you'll see in a second why. It's easy to line up. And then I can slide this way, and then I can actually line myself up with the second one with still plenty of room here, so I can move this whole piece back and forth. So I don't have to worry about aligning these until I get to a point where I have to worry about aligning these. Yep. And then boom. Now I can get in there and tighten these up. To an extent, they don't need to be too tight. Not much riding on these being in there tight. So on these ones, right one? Yep, that's the right one. So on these ones I need to line them up, but I save myself half the hassle by doing those other ones without having to line them up. So it's kind of eyeballing this at this point. Getting close to where I want to be. I need to be where I want to be. Not necessarily the same place. All right. And then lightly take this one into place. At least attempting to. There we go. And then number 2. On that one too. Lucky ducky. Those ones are on, and then we are doing the other side. So slide this around like so, and we're gonna do the same thing pretty much. Just gonna spread these out just a little bit. place. Down. Back. And line this up a little bit. Oh, man, I keep choosing the wrong ones. There we go. So I'm going to slip this sideways, kind of line it up. And these skirts are, I'd say 50% cosmetic, 50% safety related. So they're going to stop you from possibly mistakenly jabbing your fingers into the primary AC voltage that you have coming into the printer. You could still get in there if you wanted to, but most of your fingers won't fit. Maybe, no, most of your fingers won't fit through there. Kiddo fingers might fit in there though. Be mindful of that, but probably won't be able to reach all the way over to that end point. All right, get that one over there. There we go. All right, so there's that. So we got those two and ball driver. So now we're gonna install this side. It's like watching paint dry at this point. I apologize for that, but at the same time I don't. I'm putting it together step by step. So this is the last side we're actually going to be installing these on. And one more. And I'll just mention it again. If you enjoy the content, please do hit that like button. And subscribe if you can, if you like, if you want. I do appreciate it. I haven't mentioned it lately, but originally I started making these videos, in case anybody's wondering out there, kind of, sort of, for my kids. So when you get to a certain age, you get kids of a certain age, you start to think about not necessarily legacy, but kind of, you know, how are your kids going to see you, or how are they going to talk to you? I get, all right, my father passed away pretty young, so my kids never met him. So I don't plan on passing away young, but it'd be nice if there's something such as this for my kids in the future to be able to refer to if their kids ask about grandpa. Assuming there's still a world, right? Assuming there's still a YouTube. I'm thinking if there's a world, there's a YouTube. That's my bet. Some shape or form. There's that one. Oh, okay, we dropped that. Come on. That is going to be a pain in the ace to get out, because coil has a magnet. Oh, there we go. Yay. My ability to stop that screw. I don't know, these LDO screws, can't say I'm hugely impressed by them. I know they're probably not making the screws, but wherever they're sourcing them from, I'll let that one go. It's like half of them or not even half. Like there's some that fit really well and some that don't. And I've tried multiple driver types, different manufacturers, to the point where I'm pretty sure it's not them. Because if it was, every screw would be as bad as the previous, and that's not the case. Some screws are good, some screws are bad. There's no rhyme or reason to it. All right. Boom. 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 All right. So ball driver did that. Okay. So now we got panels. Panels is where we're going to cut this one out. So I'm not going to finish up putting panels until we actually run this through a test. So that being said, this is going to end this video. Go over this one last time. I'm not putting panels on this thing until we do a dry run. The printer is, for all intents and purposes, complete at this point. It is pretty slick looking. It is pretty tiny looking. It's pretty neat looking. And ready to get cooking. So, yeah, so swing by soon and we will be setting up Klipper with this, getting the controller all set up, getting the Raspberry Pi all set up, and run this through some paces. We're probably not going to do any tuning or anything like that. We'll get the panels on first, and then we will do some final tuning. But before we do the panels, I want to do, and I suggest anybody that does it, even if they're following through the manual has you put panels on now, I suggest that you do some dry runs, you do some testing, make sure everything's functioning, make sure your hot end is heating up. We're going to go over this anyways in the next video, but make sure your hot end's heating up, make sure your thermistors are properly working, your bed, thermistor there, your motors, your AB, because once you get the panels on, that just means more plastic and more parts to take off if you do have an issue. So I will see you next time, and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I'll see you soon.